The silent arrival. The first indication that humanity was no longer alone came not with grand announcements or dramatic revelations, but with a slight anomaly in the data streams at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Australia. Dr. Sarah Chen had been tracking asteroids for 12 years, and she knew the difference between a rock tumbling through space and something that moved with purpose. The object wasn't following any natural trajectory. It decelerated as it approached the outer edges of the solar system, performed a series of calculated maneuvers around Neptune, and then began what could only be described as a systematic scan of the gas giant's moons. Sarah's coffee mug trembled slightly as she set it down, her eyes fixed on the monitors displaying the object's path. Within hours, the discovery had reached the highest levels of government and military command across the globe. Emergency sessions were called at the United Nations, and secure communication channels buzzed with activity. The world held its breath as more objects were detected. 12 in total, each following a similar pattern of controlled entry into the solar system. General David Morrison stood before the hastily assembled Global Defense Council, his weathered face showing none of the uncertainty he felt inside. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are dealing with artificial constructs of extraterrestrial origin. These are not meteors, not debris, and certainly not a natural phenomenon. These are probes, and they're studying us." The probes moved with mechanical precision, cataloging everything from planetary compositions to electromagnetic signatures. They paid particular attention to Earth, circling the planet in complex patterns that suggested they were mapping not just the geography, but the technological footprint of human civilization. Radio waves, satellite communications, power grids, nothing escaped their attention. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the newly formed Extraterrestrial Response Team, presented her findings to the Council. "These probes are remarkably sophisticated. They're using scanning methods we can barely comprehend, operating on frequencies we've only theorized about. But here's what's interesting. They're being very careful not to interfere with our technology. It's almost as if they're trying to observe without being noticed." The debate raged for days. Some advocated for immediate military action, others for attempts at communication. But it was a young engineer named James Park who proposed the most audacious plan. "They're gathering intelligence on us," he said during a strategy meeting. "They want to know what we're capable of. So why don't we show them exactly what humanity can do?" Park's proposal was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of attacking the probes or trying to hide, humanity would respond in kind. But not with probes of their own. With something far more impressive. The plan, codenamed Project Ambassador, would showcase humanity's greatest strength: their ability to adapt, innovate, and surprise. The world's space agencies, working with unprecedented cooperation, began modifying existing spacecraft and designing new ones. These weren't just machines, they were statements. Each craft was equipped with the best technology humanity could offer, but more importantly, they carried something the alien probes couldn't anticipate: human creativity and unpredictability. Captain Maria Santos was chosen to lead the first response mission. A veteran astronaut with a background in both military service and scientific research, she embodied the duality of humanity's nature, capable of both conflict and cooperation. As she prepared for launch, she couldn't help but wonder what kind of intelligence had sent these probes and what they would think of humanity's response. The alien probes continued their methodical survey, seemingly unaware of the preparations happening on Earth's surface. They cataloged military installations, analyzed communication networks, and studied population centers. Their creators, wherever they were building a comprehensive picture of human civilization. But humanity had a surprise in store. The response wouldn't be what anyone expected, not missiles, not warnings, but something that would demonstrate the full spectrum of human capability. As the launch date approached, teams around the world put finishing touches on their contributions to the mission. Artists, scientists, soldiers, and diplomats all played their part in crafting humanity's message to the stars. Dr. Chen, who had first spotted the probes, now watched as humanity prepared its response. "They sent probes to study us," she mused to her colleague. "But we're sending something they won't expect. We're sending our complexity, our contradictions, our humanity itself." The launch day arrived with the world watching. Multiple rockets lifted off from launch sites across the globe, each carrying a piece of humanity's response. But these weren't just spacecraft. They were ambassadors, soldiers of a different kind, armed not with weapons, but with the full range of human achievement and potential. As the human vessels approached the alien probes, something unprecedented happened. The probes, which had maintained their systematic patterns for weeks, suddenly changed their behavior. They oriented themselves toward the approaching human craft, their sensors focusing with intense interest on these unexpected visitors. The stage was set for first contact, but not in any way the alien intelligence had anticipated. They had sent probes expecting to find another civilization to catalog and categorize. Instead, they encountered something far more complex, a species that responded to observation not with fear or aggression, but with creativity and confidence. Captain Santos watched through her viewport as her ship approached the nearest probe. "This is humanity, reaching out," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You came to learn about us. Let us show you who we really are." The alien probe's response was immediate and surprising. It began transmitting on new frequencies, its behavior shifting from passive observation to active engagement. Whatever intelligence guided these probes, it had just discovered that humanity was unlike anything it had encountered before. Back on Earth, the response teams monitored the interaction with growing excitement. The gamble had paid off. By meeting the unknown with confidence rather than fear, humanity had changed the entire dynamic of first contact. The aliens had sent probes, clinical and detached. Earth had sent soldiers, not of war, but of peace, creativity, and boundless potential. The unexpected response. The moment Captain Santos's ship established a stable position near the alien probe, everything changed. The probe, which had been maintaining a clinical distance from all human technology, moved closer. Its surface, previously smooth and featureless, began to shimmer with patterns of light that seemed almost organic in their flow. "Houston, we have interaction," Santos reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "The probe is responding to our presence. It's like it's curious." Back on Earth, the mission control centers across the globe fell silent. Dr. Elena Vasquez leaned forward, studying the data streams with intense focus. "It's not just scanning anymore," she whispered. "It's trying to communicate." The human ships, 12 in total, matching the number of alien probes, each carried different aspects of human culture and capability. One contained a comprehensive database of human art and music. Another held scientific knowledge, from basic mathematics to quantum physics. A third carried military history, not as a threat, but as an honest representation of humanity's complex relationship with conflict and peace. Lieutenant Commander John Way piloted the ship carrying human biological data. As his vessel approached another probe, he initiated the planned sequence, beginning biological data transmission. "Let's show them the diversity of life on Earth." The probe's response was immediate. It began emitting pulses of energy that seemed to match the rhythm of the transmitted data. Then something extraordinary happened. The probe began to change shape, forming appendages that mimicked the basic structure of Earth's various life forms. "It's learning," John reported, amazement creeping into his voice. "Not just recording, actually understanding and adapting." The alien intelligence behind the probes had sent them expecting to find another civilization to catalog, perhaps to evaluate as a potential threat or resource. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. A species that responded to first contact with openness, creativity, and a willingness to share the full spectrum of their existence. Captain Santos's ship carried perhaps the most important cargo: messages from Earth's children, drawings, stories, questions about the universe, and invitations to friendship. As she began transmitting this data, the probe's behavior became even more intriguing. The light patterns on its surface began to pulse in ways that seemed almost emotional. "Command, I'm seeing rapid changes in the probe's energy signature," Santos reported. "It's as if it's excited by the children's messages." Dr. James Park, whose idea had spawned this entire mission, watched from mission control with growing satisfaction. "They expected to find a civilization to study," he said to General Morrison. "Instead, they found a species that turns first contact into an exchange. We're not just subjects to be observed. We're participants in this moment." The interaction escalated as more human ships engaged with the probes. The vessel carrying human music began its transmission, and the response was remarkable. The probes began generating harmonics, creating a form of music that was alien yet somehow complementary to Earth's melodies. It was as if the two species were finding a common language in sound. Commander Yuki Tanaka, piloting the ship with humanity's technological achievements, noticed her probe behaving differently. It was constructing something, a small object that it carefully released toward her ship. "I have a gift. The probe has created something and sent it our way." The object was a perfect sphere, about the size of a basketball, made of a material unknown to human science. As it was brought aboard and analyzed, the science teams on Earth made an astounding discovery. The sphere contained data, not about the aliens, but about other civilizations they had encountered. It was a gesture of trust, a sharing of knowledge that went beyond mere observation. "They're not conquerors or scouts," Dr. Vasquez announced to the Global Council. "They're explorers, like us, and they recognize kindred spirits." The next phase of interaction began as the probes started working in concert with the human ships. Together, they performed synchronized maneuvers, creating patterns in space that could be seen from Earth's most powerful telescopes. It was a dance of sorts, a physical expression of two species learning to communicate. Captain Santos received a transmission unlike any before. The probe had decoded enough human language to send a message. "You surprise us. Most species hide or attack. You share. Why?" Santos smiled as she composed her response. "Because that's who we are. We're explorers, dreamers, fighters, and friends. We're human, and we believe the universe is better when different species learn from each other." The probe's response came quickly. "We agree. We sent probes. You sent teachers. We have much to learn from each other." Over the following days, the exchange of information accelerated. The aliens revealed that they were called the Zenteri, a species that had been exploring the galaxy for millennia. They had encountered hundreds of civilizations, but none had responded to first contact quite like humanity. "Most species see our probes as threats," the Zenteri communicated. "They respond with fear or aggression. You responded with yourselves, your complexity, your creativity, your contradictions. You showed us your strength not through weapons, but through vulnerability." The human ships had indeed been soldiers, but not in any traditional sense. They were soldiers of connection, ambassadors of the human spirit. Each ship had carried weapons, not of destruction, but of understanding. Art was a weapon against isolation. Music was a weapon against silence. Children's drawings were weapons against cynicism. As the formal first contact protocols were established, both species began planning for the next phase. The Zenteri proposed sending actual representatives to Earth, while humanity prepared to venture further into space with their new allies. Dr. Chen, who had first spotted the probes, was chosen to be part of the welcoming committee. "It's remarkable," she said during a press conference. "They sent probes to study us from a distance. We sent ourselves, our dreams, our fears, our hopes. And in doing so, we didn't just make contact. We made friends." The Zenteri probes, no longer mere observation devices, had become bridges between civilizations. They worked alongside human technology, sharing knowledge and perspectives. The universe had become a little smaller and infinitely more interesting. General Morrison, The military leader who had prepared for potential conflict found himself planning for cooperation instead. "We prepared for war," he admitted to his staff. "But our greatest victory came through peace. We showed them the best of humanity, and they responded in kind." The story of first contact would be remembered not as a tale of conquest or subjugation, but as a moment when two species chose understanding over fear. The Zentari had sent their probes expecting to find another data point in their vast catalog of civilizations. Instead, they found partners in the great adventure of exploring the universe. As Captain Santos prepared for her return to Earth, she received one final message from the Centauri probe. "You have taught us something valuable. True strength comes not from weapons or technology, but from the courage to be vulnerable, to share oneself completely. You didn't just send soldiers, you sent your souls." The human ships began their journey home, accompanied by Centauri probes that were no longer observers but companions. Earth had responded to first contact not with the soldiers of war, but with soldiers of the human spirit. And in doing so, they had not only protected their world, but had opened a door to a universe full of possibilities. The children who had sent their drawings would grow up in a world where humanity was no longer alone. The artists whose work had bridged the gap between species would inspire a new era of interstellar culture. The scientists who had shared their knowledge would collaborate with alien minds to unlock the secrets of the universe. They had sent probes. Earth had sent soldiers. But in the end, both species had found something far more valuable than mere information or security. They had found understanding, friendship, and a shared destiny among the stars. The universe would never be the same.